Today I will do nature printmaking with a jelly plate. For this project, I will be using a brayer. I also will be using some ink or some paint. You could use ink like this, which is for block printing, or you can also just use regular acrylic paint, which is what I will be doing today for my project. This is the Artist Loft brand. It's the student grade quality. I'm also using a jelly plate. I ordered my jelly plate off of Amazon, and it is called a jelly plate because it has kind of a jelly texture. I'm putting it on a board underneath, and I've got some scrap paper around too, just to kind of set things on once they get paint on them. I've also gone out in nature and found some different textured things that I'm going to use for my printmaking for today, and I have that laid out on my scrap paper. For my printing paper, I'm actually just using paper that I would use in a printer, so it's just regular office paper. You can try different variations and thicknesses of paper, but I find this paper works just fine. So to begin, I'm going to pick a color. It doesn't really matter what color I do, and I'm just going to squirt small amounts on my jelly plate in various spots. You can always add more paint, but I recommend kind of starting off small, just a little bit at a time. And I'm going to get my brayer and start rolling it on my jelly plate to spread out the paint. And you'll be able to see that you have to kind of keep turning direction. So I'll do it sideways and then I'll do it up and down to try to make sure that it covers nice and evenly. I've also found that it works best to do long rolls instead of some short, quick rolls. That just gets a better covering on the jelly plate as well. Now I can take my items from nature and lay them out on the wet paint on my jelly plate. I don't need to press them down at all. I'm just kind of gently putting them in an interesting way on the jelly plate. And notice that I can kind of have some going off the edges. That's fine. They can kind of be floating in the middle if you want. That's fine too. Now I'm taking my office paper and I'm going to kind of smash it down on top of my nature things. And then I'm going to use my fingers to rub. And I'm trying not to let the paper move as I am doing this rubbing. So maybe one hand is holding the paper in place while the other one rubs and rubs and rubs to try to get all of the paper touching the jelly plate. Once I feel like I've gotten it all rubbed, I can very carefully peel it off to reveal my print. Ooh, I'm loving how this is looking. You can see that anywhere I had nature items, the paper was left white, and then the rest of it picked up the paint from the jelly plate. Now I'm going to gently remove the items from the plate, and I'm going to see that there is some paint left that's kind of cool that looks like the different textures. So I want to collect that too. So I'm going to get a different paper that's completely white, and I'm going to lay that down now to get a second print. And this one's easier because there's nothing in the way, so I can just press it down all the way over with my fingers, making sure to cover the entire paper. And I can peel that one back to reveal some of those items now showing up on this paper. You can see the cool textures there. And I could do it a third time as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I could have done it again, but I'm going to go ahead and move on to another color. All right, now I have gold. You can see I added a couple dots of gold. I didn't even clean my brayer because the colors are so similar, it doesn't really matter. A lot of times when I do this project, I really like to work in the same color family so I can just move from one color to the next without worrying about washing everything really well. If I was going to go from like yellow to black or to purple or something really different, I would want to wash my brayer off with water and probably wash my jelly plate off with water too. All right, I'm going to do the same thing again, but this time I'm going to move the items around a little bit, put them in a different place on my jelly plate. Maybe I'll use different items or I'll use more of one kind or another kind. So you can kind of play around with the placement of the items on the jelly plate. Once I have all of my things placed on the jelly plate, I am ready to do another print. So here I have another just clean white piece of paper. I'm pressing it down with both hands, trying to make sure not to move it again, and filling all of the paper with that paint, hopefully, as it is on my plate here. Making sure to get a good print. Let's peel it back to reveal. Oh, I love the gold. Lovely. All right, that looks really nice. Now I'm going to go ahead and take all of my plants off again. Ooh, the leaves look beautiful. I love how you can see all of the veins. And now I'm going to take one of the ones I did last time and I'm going to do a print right on top of the other print. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down and add some pressure and some rubbing to make sure I get a good transfer here. And I have some overlapping prints. Ooh, so you can kind of see some of those elements through the other. It's kind of interesting and it's kind of fun to play around with when you have some other colors. I still have paint left, so I'm going to do that with another print that I already had done and add a little bit of extra to that one as well. So I'm just pushing down, making sure to get all of that paint off, and you'll be able to see bits of gold on this yellow print too. So that's kind of fun to see that. All right, I think I want to do one more color. This time I'm going to use orange and I'm going to squirt it all over the jelly plate in different little dots of color. And this one should be a little bit bigger of a difference than the yellow and the gold since those are so similar. So I wanted to show you something with a little bit more contrast. And again, I need to roll it and roll it and roll it till I get an even covering. Remember that bigger rolling is better to kind of get it spread out instead of the small rolling. And I mean, if it isn't perfectly even, you'll just have kind of globs of color in certain spots. The nice thing about doing this is there's just so many different things you can experiment with. You can experiment with paper, you can experiment with paint, with the materials that you add. There's so many fun things that you can do with this. And then, of course, once you have all of these prints, there are so many things that you can do with them afterwards. You can just keep them as prints and call it an art masterpiece, or you can cut them up and use them in a collage. You could do like silhouettes over the top of them. I mean, there's just so many different things. All right, I'm going to use this paper and add a second print to it. So it has gold underneath. Now I'm adding some orange on the top. I'm sticking with kind of a warm color palette today, making sure to get a really good pressure all the way on my paper. And now you can kind of see, so all those leaves acted like little windows to the first print. It's kind of a cool effect. And then I'm going to take them all off where you can see the orange veins. Oh, this is like my favorite. I just love because each piece seems like it's like a magic trick. I'm going to go ahead and try this one again and see what happens when I put a third print on this paper, pressing it all over. And we'll pull this back to see what that looks like. Whoa, it's so beautiful. Look at those leaves. They turned out so nice and clear. And then that yellow and the gold in the background just really makes for some exciting effects. There's a little bit of color left, so I'll add a little bit more to this one. And we'll just keep playing until I have some prints that I just love. So you can keep doing this. It's super fun to experiment and play and try out all of these different prints. Ooh, just that subtle bit of orange really adds something to this one. I love how it turned out. And now you can see I've got 4 different ones, but I could have just kept going and going and going, I think, to get all kinds of interesting shapes and colors and prints on these pieces. Thank you so much for joining me today on Elke Art. I hope you like trying out this printmaking process. I find it so fun to experiment and explore the different options. If you are liking these videos, please hit that like button and subscribe down below and join me on Elke Art for more fun tutorials. Have a good one.